Good morning, please be seated. Before we start, can I reiterate some comments made by Commissioner Owen yesterday, and they apply equally today. What the Commissioner said was that in relation to witnesses who are giving evidence, it may be necessary to canvass material that has been provided by patrons who cannot be named or about, or not necessarily provided by, but also provided about patrons who cannot be named. From time to time, it may be necessary to take the evidence in private sessions. In that case, appropriate orders will be made. During public hearings, everyone, that's witnesses, counsel and commissioners alike, should exercise caution to ensure that patrons are not named, and in case there is a slip or inadvertent naming, there is a general non-publication order prohibiting the name of those individuals. In case of a slip or inadvertent naming, counsel should raise the issue and the general non-publication order can be made specific. We will also need to guard against the display on public screens of documents that name patrons. This does not apply to documents that are already tendered as part of the public record and in respect of which a non-publication order has not been made. If the name of a patron is already a matter of public record, the general non-publication order can, on application, be lifted. Thank you. We are here to hear the evidence of Ms. Smith. Ms. Smith, Mrs. Smith, is it?
Mrs. Yes.
Mrs. Mrs. Smith, before you commence your evidence, you must take an oath or an affirmation. What do you choose to take?
Affirmation.
Right, thank you. Please stand. Could you please state your full name for the record?
Melissa Lee Smith.
Right, thank you. And could you please read out aloud the affirmation?
I, Melissa Lee Smith, sincerely declare and affirm that the evidence that I give this commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Please be seated and make yourself comfortable.
Thanks.
Now, yes, Mr. Davis, you appear for Mrs. Smith.
I do, may it please the Commission.
Thank you, and you may examine her.
Thank you. Mrs. Smith, you have been summoned to appear at this Commission and have prepared a witness statement for the purpose of this hearing, have you not?
Yes.
So could I ask you to look at this document, code CRP.998.002.0587, which will hopefully appear on the screen now. So is that the statement you've made in this matter dated 16th of September 2021?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. I understand you have a change or a clarification you want to make in relation to paragraph 26.
Yes, thank you.
Which is on page 0590. So I understand it's in relation to the last sentence of that paragraph.
Correct. In regards to the customer due diligence, myself and my team may be requested to provide enhanced customer due diligence from the financial crime or AML team. So we may be asked upon to provide information regarding certain customers. Myself is also an approver for the source of funds process, which is providing financial information.
Thank you.
Perhaps we should then just delete the words, however, my team and I are not involved in these processes. Would that be, and the oral evidence she has given?
Yes, my understanding is the correction is to the proposition that her team, Mrs. Smith's team and she were not involved in relation to customer due diligence.
Yes, so I think we'll just delete that phrase from however to the end of the sentence, and then her oral evidence has explained what her involvement is, hers and her team. All right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I've made that amendment. Was there
Thank
anything
you.
else?
Is there anything else?
No, nothing
No.
else. Thank
So
you.
could you turn to page 0598? So, although on the screen it's not showing your signature, but on the copy you've got there, you can confirm that's your signature.
Yes, correct. That is my signature.
And then on the next page, 0599, just to note that that's a document you've referred to in the statement.
Yes, correct.
Thank you. Now, can you confirm the contents of your witness statement are true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I can confirm.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. That's Mrs. Smith's evidence
Thank you.
in chief, and I tender the statement.
Thank you. The Mrs. Smith's statement with the one amendment to it and bearing the reference number identified by Mr. Davis will be an exhibit in the commission. Thank you, Mr. Davis.
Please, the Commission.
Yes, Mrs. Sorry. Yes, Ms. Spencer.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mrs. Smith, my name's Anne Spencer and I'm one of the counsel assisting the Royal Commission. I'm going to take you through your statement, ask you to clarify some of your evidence, and in some instances I'll ask you to expand on that evidence. There will also be some further topics which I'll ask you about. Now, you've been at Crown Perth since 2008, is that right?
Correct.
And you joined as an electronic gaming machine supervisor?
Correct.
And prior to that, you'd worked at Sky City Casino in Adelaide for about 7 years, where
Yes.
you were a gaming machine attendant.
Yes.
And then you later became a VIP host and VIP executive host in Adelaide.
Correct.
Now, those host positions that you held in Adelaide, were they in the gaming machine space or they were? Thank you. Now, turning back to your positions at Crown Perth, you were an EGM supervisor for about 12 months and then promoted to an EGM shift manager. That's
Yes.
correct? Yes. And what is the difference between those two roles?
So the electronic gaming machine shift manager actually didn't exist when I was a gaming machine supervisor. So that was, I joined the role of electronic gaming machine shift manager when it was created. So it's managing the operations of electronic gaming machines, whereas game machine supervisor supervises the operations of gaming machines.
So the EGM supervisors actually walk the floor and
Correct, as did the managers. However,
Yes.
at the time I was an electronic gaming machine supervisor, the table game shift managers had some level of authority in regards to our processes and practices.
all right. Now, in 2015, you became the operations manager for the gaming machines. Is that right?
Correct.
Now, does that cover EGMs, fully automated table games, Keno and Trackside,
Yes, and also the loyalty program.
and the loyalty program? I see. Now, in your statement, you refer to electronic table games. Is that the same as a fully automated table game?
Yes, so there is fully automated table games and semi-automated table games. So combined, we refer to them as electronic table games.
I see. And your remit covers both of those.
The service provided to patrons and the transactions on the machines, however, they are an approved table game, and the revenue and the game belongs to table games, or is the responsibility of table games.
Okay, I see. Now, I'm just trying to get an understanding of the difference between an operations manager and a gaming machine shift manager. How do you distinguish between the two? What's the different?
Yeah, sure. So
tasks involved?
the gaming machine shift manager works on shift, and so it is a 24/7 position. So they are responsible for the operations, the daily operations, and they also are the approver of certain processes and transactions. They will monitor and ensure the customer experience and the staff performance is being adhered to on shift. And then you want equally the difference between an operations manager.
Perhaps if I could just ask you one question. You mentioned daily operations. Could you be a bit more specific about what you mean by daily operations in respect to the
So
gaming
when I
machines?
refer to daily, we refer to a whole day.
Yes.
So that's all the processes that we undertake to operate the gaming machines and to serve our customers. So making sure our customers are served, our processes are followed, desks are open, machines are open, technically they're working, revenue's being counted.
In terms of serving the customers, in what way are you serving the customers?
They're making sure the staff are serving the customers in accordance with the processes. But they do equally speak with customers.
But in terms of if the customers are playing the gaming machines, I'm just trying to understand what serving those customers from a staff point of view, what that involves.
Yeah, sure. So completing transactions, attending to faults, performing payouts.
What sorts of, can I take you back to transactions?
Yes.
Completing transactions, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, sure, sorry. So that includes payouts, it includes hopper fills, jackpot payments, short pays.
What's the second one you mentioned?
Hopper fills?
What's
that's
that?
filling gaming machines with coins.
I see. So when there's a payout, there's money in the machine to pay out, is that?
Certain machines have a hopper with coins in them,
Oh,
yes.
I see. Sorry, I think I interrupted your list. I think I heard 3 things. Was there anything else in the service of patrons?
So I said transactions including all payouts, hopper fills, faults and customer queries. And obviously providing general information to our customers and monitoring their behaviour.
And in terms of the faults, what sorts of faults can occur?
Yeah, sure. Ticket faults, so a ticket could jam, a note could jam when they're inserting it.
And the tickets that are being inserted, what tickets are those? Are they that you're talking about?
So they're payout tickets, so a machine can pay out its credit in the form of a gaming machine ticket, which may be referred to in some documents as a Tito ticket.
I see. And faults with payouts, I think you referred to. What sort of issues? Is it the customer's not getting the right amount of money, or?
I don't think I referred to faults with payouts, but there can be customer queries in relation to their payouts and whether they've been paid out in accordance with the game rules.
I see. Now, if I could just go back to my initial question, which was the difference between what the shift manager does and then what the operations manager for game machine does. So the shift manager was saying they work shifts, it's a 24/7 position. Could you just explain the operations manager role for me?
Yeah, sure. So the operations manager role is, coordinating the operations, so providing guidance as to any process changes, marketing direction, promotions that are occurring. They're collaborating with other teams about how we can provide customer experience.
And in terms of, you mentioned marketing directions there. So does that position, and that was your previous position, you had a lot to do with the marketing team at Crown?
No, we work together. So we would, feedback what the marketing or the promotion processes would be to our operational teams. That's what I would do.
And is that the feedback you're getting from patrons about what they think of the marketing? Or
No, sorry, that's in relation to any promotions or offers we deliver. So I would work with the marketing team to determine how that would be operationally delivered, and then that would be provided to my staff.
Okay, so it's sort of forging the marketing plan with the marketing team, how it's going to be rolled out?
How we would operationally roll it out, yes.
All right. Now, when you worked as a operations manager, were you working sort of Monday to Friday, or what was you weren't doing sort of night shifts, or could you just explain?
No, generally it is Monday to Friday, but I would occasionally work weekends and night shifts, yes.
But generally Monday to Friday business hours?
Correct, yes.
Now, I'd just like to get a feel for the latest promotion you've had to the Director of Casino Operations, Gaming Machines. What extra responsibilities did you take on in October 2019?
Additional responsibilities would be I was now part of the business operations team, which is a leadership team we have at Crown Perth.
And you've got a team of people reporting to you?
No, same team reporting to
The
me.
same team.
Correct.
So in becoming part of this business operations team, what does that mean practically? Are you going to more meetings or?
I would go to business operation team meetings, yes.
Anything else differ in this new role compared to the operations manager role that you can
No, I
think
don't
of?
believe so.
And what sorts of things occur at the business operations meeting? Who attends those meetings as well?
The members of the business operations team, there's a number of team members.
Perhaps I'll bring up a document which is the like a corporate what's the word? Organisation chart was the expression I was looking for. If we could bring up CRW.701.004.9492. Have you seen this document before?
Yes, I have.
Now, if you could just take a look at that for me, and does that reflect your current understanding of where you sit in the scheme of things in Crown Perth?
Yes, it is.
And so when you were talking about the being part of the business operating team, so is it the everyone on this chart is in that team?
I think there's a second page as well.
We could just scroll down. Is that the second page you're thinking of?
Sorry, yes.
The second page? So just in terms of those business operations meetings that you now attend, how often do they occur?
I don't think they are a regular occurrence. It's as business needs.
Right. And so when was the last meeting?
Last meeting held was on Friday.
Oh, okay. And who, from this chart, who was in attendance, as best you can recall?
Would be difficult to confirm because it was also done on WebEx.
I see. But it was just Perth
No.
operations?
No, also group roles attended.
Mhm. So you mentioned you talk about operational things at these meetings. I just want to get an idea of what is classed as an operational.
Yeah, sure. So we obviously talk about the impact the Royal Commission may have on the business and on our people, on the current culture of our team, and the last one was also discussed our mandatory vaccination program announced.
And is another meeting scheduled, or are they just an ad hoc?
I believe there is another meeting scheduled this Friday.
I see. Now, can I just before I pull this chart down, if we could go back to the first page for me. Can I just confirm there, Richard Smith, that's your husband?
Correct.
Yes, thank you. And now, just in terms of who reports to you in your current role, I think you say in your statement 120 people.
Approximately, yes.
Yes, and they they're just on the main gaming floor, those staff, or are they?
Some of them aren't stationed on the main gaming floor. Some of them may be back of house, what we refer to as back of house. They're in offices.
So they're non-client facing roles.
Correct.
What sort of roles are those?
So a workforce planner, a systems development coordinator, a learning and development coordinator.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of your responsibilities, which you refer to at paragraph 9 of your witness statement, you're referring there to overseeing the gaming machines. So is that what we were discussing before? It's the EGMs and it's the semi-automated table games, the fully automated table games, Keno and Trackside?
Correct.
And now, is it just the ones on the main gaming floor, or do you oversee the Riverside and Pearl rooms?
No, I don't oversee those teams.
Just the main gaming floor.
Correct.
And do you know how many EGMs are on the main gaming floor?
How many were approved for? So 2,500.
But that's for the whole footprint, is it not?
Oh, sorry, it is.
So
yes.
do you know how many are just on the main gaming floor?
I believe It is, sorry, I'm just
It's
trying
just
to
an estimate, it's
calculate.
fine.
Yeah. 1,800.
I see. Now, you're also responsible for the operation of the Crown Rewards program,
Yes.
and this was part of your current role and your previous role. Is that when you took the Crown Rewards responsibility on?
When
Or
I
has it been
became
longer?
operations manager.
I see. And you say you facilitate also the services provided in the TAB agency, and just the services in that agency. What are those
So
services?
we have staff that will sell bets or transact bets for racing and wagering customers.
Now, you refer to managing your staff who perform transaction activity and interact with Crown Perth's EGM customers. What's the transactional activity that you're referring to there? So this is in paragraph 9 of your statement.
Sure, that's in relation to the transactions we spoke of earlier, so payouts, hopper fills, jackpots, queries, faults.
And and when you say managing their interactions, is it the case that you don't yourself interact with the customers?
So where are you referring?
I'm just in paragraph 9. Managing interactions. Sorry, let me just find the bit.
And managing the staff who perform transactional activity and interact with our gaming machines? Is that what you're referring to?
So I'm just trying to, so your staff are interacting with the patrons. I'm just trying to understand whether you're on the floor interacting with those patrons
No,
also.
not at all times, no.
But things
The
would
shift
get-
managers will manage them whilst they're on the floor.
Okay, so in a typical work day, if there is such a thing, you're not out there walking the gaming floor or you're more back of house in the office,
Correct,
and then things will get elevated to you
correct.
if the shift, and are there instances where shift managers come to you because they're not not able to resolve some concerns?
Occasionally,
floor
yes.
staff? What sorts of things might you need to have a hand in resolving?
Escalated customer complaints or staff matters that escalate.
I see. So in terms of the customer complaints, are you talking about more serious customer complaints? What's an example of a more serious customer complaint?
As an example, a machine that's paid out something it shouldn't have.
Mm-hmm. So you'd step in and help resolve that.
Correct.
Would it not necessarily involve meeting with the patron though? You'd more so just deal with your staff?
Not necessarily always involving the patron.
And in terms of the other role, you said dealing with staffing issues, I think you said. What sorts of things get elevated to you from the shift managers? Does everything, sorry, I'll ask one question first. Does everything come through you from the shift managers rather than the main floor staff? So does it sort of like filter its way up to you? Or
not
can someone
always,
lower
not
down
always.
your team approach you with any concerns?
Yes, anyone can approach me
Anyone
within
can
the team.
approach you. All right. And what's the sort of can you think of any examples of staffing concerns that you've had to deal with as operations manager?
Staff grievances, as an example.
What sorts of things have been grievances in the past?
Staff, I guess I don't have to mention people.
No.
So staff complaints about other team members and the way they're treated or the way they're spoken to.
So like bullying, perhaps?
Correct,
Things
yes.
like that. And what would you do with, say, a bullying complaint? Is there a procedure that you follow, or is it something you try and deal with yourself, or does it go to HR?
There's a policy we follow, so that's the grievance policy. So we provide the team members with the options they have to make a complaint if they'd like to.
And do they occur frequently, infrequently,
I
not
would
really a
say
pattern?
There's no pattern, so infrequent, I would say.
Say in the last year, how many sort of staff grievances do you think you would have received?
Maybe 2.
But then there could be more that maybe you just don't hear about as well, but they're just the ones that have been brought to your attention.
If I'm allowed to know about them, I would know about them from my team.
Okay. Now, just going back to paragraph 9, you also say you manage the staff who facilitate the Crown rewards program and performs sales relating to Crown gifts. What is Crown gifts?
Crown Gifts is like a gift card.
Oh, okay, I
Yep.
see.
They also sell merchandise items, so it could be a bathrobe, a candle.
Oh, just with
That's
like the Crown logo
correct.
on those sorts of things? Okay. Now, just turning back to the 120 staff or so that you oversee, and you say that 48 work in the loyalty team. What's it that they do day to day?
So they will assist our customers with anything to do with their Crown Rewards membership card, obviously selling gift cards and selling merchandise items. They will respond to hotline calls in regards to customer membership queries. They will assist in validating parking, which is a benefit of the Crown Rewards member. They'll just respond to general queries, so it could be related to the complex, to their benefits, to our facilities, anything at Crown.
Mm-hmm. And where are these, when these staff are working, where are they based at these? I think you mentioned 3 desks.
Correct, yes.
They're based at the Crown Rewards desks throughout their entire shift?
Yes, we also have staff, customer service specialists that are on the gaming floor, roaming around the gaming floor.
Are they
speaking.
outside the 48 working in the loyalty team?
No, they're within that group.
And so at any one time, how many of those staff are working? And does it perhaps
Yeah,
depend
sure.
on
I'm
the time
just
of
trying-
day?
At the busiest time, you mean?
You're just trying to get an idea of
Yeah,
what's
sure.
the maximum amount of those staff that would be working.
The
at once?
maximum we would have would probably be 16 to 20.
That's at peak period?
Correct.
And so the peak period's Saturday night?
It can vary. If there is a stadium game or something on, it could be a Sunday, it could be any day.
And now you refer to the gaming machine staff, and I just want to canvass their role. Are they dealing with the payouts and that sort of thing that you were referring
Correct,
to
our gaming
earlier?
machine customers.
And dealing with any gaming machine faults? And just the same question again, how many at any one time could be working?
It's probably 10 to 15.
And so they're covering off the 1,800 EGMs? And then of those other, so the fully automated,
That includes
automated.
the ETGs, yeah.
It includes
the
that?
ETGs.
But how many of those other machines in the Keno and Trackside, how many of those machines are being sort of
Yeah,
monitored?
currently we're only operating self-serve terminals for Keno, and Trackside's not operating at the moment.
And self-serve Keno, is there just the one?
I believe there's 3.
Now, you've spoken about the learning and development coordinator that sits there in your team also. What's their role?
To deliver the training and development for our team members, and to also provide coaching and supporting of our team members.
What sort of training? Is it about gaming machines specifically, or RSG, or?
It could be all forms of training for our team. So yes, that can include game machines, RSG, AML, procedural training, Crown Rewards.
And so they would, say if there was a new EGM on the floor, they would run training on how that new EGM works? Is that their responsibility
If
too?
required, yes.
would there be a time when that's not required? I'm just trying to work out who's
Yeah, sure. So
responsibility that is.
often our gaming machines are very similar. So if it's a similar gaming machine, we may not necessarily provide one-to-one training, but we do provide the machine for the staff to familiarise themselves with in a back-of-house environment.
Now, the workforce planner you referred to, is that someone organising who's working when?
Correct.
And the systems development coordinator?
Yes, so that person does our testing of our systems and upgrades.
What systems?
So we've got a lot of systems. So
Yes.
our loyalty systems, our gaming machine systems, so our monitoring systems, our jackpot service systems.
So is there responsibility to just, in effect, audit those systems to ensure that they're always working correctly?
More test them to make sure they are working correctly.
And then responding to any issues with those systems as well?
Yes,
Is
or they
in
assist in
your-
investigating those system issues, yes.
Now, in terms of the reports that you receive in your role, what sort of reports do you receive day to day?
Yes, so daily I would receive reports on members that join the program, the...
Is that called a members report or?
I'm sorry, I wouldn't
Not
be
sure.
able to recall. I think it's called new member report. I would receive an Egm Performance Report.
Are these all within the one document or are they all?
Various
you sort
documents.
of get dribs and drabs of
Correct.
information?
They would all be an individual document.
Sorry,
So
what
the
was
day-
that last one? The
Sorry?
EGM.
Egm Performance Report.
And what's in the EGM performance report?
It would have details regarding our turnover, our revenue, our carded activity, it's referred to as rated play.
Rated play?
Correct.
When someone uses a card?
Correct.
Okay. And that's a day that you receive the EGM performance report daily.
Correct.
And so if you're working 5 days a week, is anyone checking it on the days that you're not there, or is that just something you catch up on when you're back in the office?
I also receive it. I receive it every day, so I can view it any day, and I can review it obviously when I'm back in the office.
But no one's allocated that task to review that report in your absence?
No, correct.
And just going back to the rewards, the Crown Rewards daily report you said you get, what's in that one? Is that about sign-ups and new
Correct.
patrons?
Yes, that would contain information about how many new patrons we have joined to the program, how many would be contactable, how many have used the coupon that they were issued.
So just really tracking what's
Correct.
happened in the last 24-hour period.
Correct.
Any other reports that you receive?
I would receive shift reports from our operational teams. So
they're from the shift managers?
Correct.
Okay, can you tell me about those, please?
Yeah, sure. So that would contain information about the shift and about what occurred during the shift. That's basically it.
So what sorts of things are they noting? What occurrences would make that shift report?
So they would talk about any impacts on the customer experience, any performance-related matters in the different areas. The customer experience is quite broad because that includes things like parking, our amenities, our facilities, events and entertainment that we have on site.
And so would it contain grievances perhaps from particular patrons?
No, we wouldn't put that detail in there.
So is it...
We would reference perhaps in general,
Okay.
but the detail would be in a separate email.
And so every gaming shift manager, after they complete their shift, they do one of these reports to you?
There's one received a day.
Okay, so they all contribute to that report?
Correct.
And just, I don't think we touched on gaming shift managers, how many you might have on the floor at any one time? Just one? So who's contributing to that report if it's just from that gaming shift manager? Is it the general gaming machine staff?
So the game machine supervisors would contribute to it, the TAB supervisor or the TAB operators would contribute to it.
Okay, so the supervisors sit just below the gaming shift managers?
Correct.
And how many of those would be working
At any one time, 4 to 5.
Now, any other reports that you receive daily?
There would be reports related to coupons issued to members' loyalty account,
And who does that report come from? Marketing?
data analytics.
Any reports on responsible service of gaming?
No, not daily, no.
And no reports of concerns of customers misbehaving?
You mean security reports?
Yeah, those sorts of things.
I don't receive the security reports.
And surveillance, anything from surveillance at all?
I don't receive.
Now, just in terms of complaints that come up to you in respect of EGMs, what's the payout complaint is one that perhaps gets up to you. Are there any other sorts of complaints about EGMs that reach you from patrons?
Specifically about gaming machines?
Yes.
There may be complaints received via our feedback forum that I'm asked to provide input on and assist the team with responding.
What's the feedback for it?
So it's called Medallia.
Mm-hmm. And who organises that? And
So the customers lodge that online, and then the comments are allocated to us based on the customers.
so is it so? I'm just trying to work out the name Medallia. Is there like a link on the website or something where people
correct.
can lodge a complaint about anything or
A complaint
machine?
or feedback, yes.
Okay. And so those are circulated. Who do you know who distributes those complaints? Allocates it to the.
I believe it's the guest services team, which is a group team.
And you'll get that email saying, here's the list of complaints we've received through the.
I receive every complaint along with my shift managers.
Okay. And in terms of resolving those complaints, is a note then made somewhere and when those things have been resolved, if they can be resolved?
Yes, there's the update is provided within the system.
And so are your staff encouraged to tell patrons if you have a complaint about anything, go onto the website and look for Medallia? Is that how it works?
We always encourage our staff to try and escalate it on site first so it can be resolved in person.
And when it happens?
Correct.
Okay.
Otherwise, they are able, if the customer doesn't wish to do that, they're able to provide them that link to provide their feedback.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you have anything to do with the submissions made to the Gaming and Wagering Commission about electronic gaming machines?
On occasion, I'm asked to review a document to determine if the content is accurate in relation to my operational team and operational duties.
Can you think about the last time that you were asked to do that and who asked you?
Sorry, I've got the worst memory. I'm not
That's
able
all
to
right.
recall.
How about in 2019? Are you aware of the change in the gaming speed from 5 seconds to 3 seconds when there's the in-game features?
I'm aware of the change.
Did you have any involvement in that submission to the Gaming and Wagering
No, I
Commission?
didn't, no.
And no one asked you for any input in relation to that?
Not to my recollection, no.
Have you had any feedback from patrons about that change in game speed?
No, I'm not aware of any feedback.
Have you had any, have any issues, sorry, I'll start that again. Has it ever been raised with you, any concerns about red tags or credit cards being used to hold down buttons on the EGMs?
I am aware of, yes, that being raised.
And when was that raised?
Again, I'm unable to recall. I believe it was 2018.
And what happened with that issue?
It was raised by the Gaming and Wagering Commission, or by the regulator, in response to a report of something that had occurred in Crown Melbourne, or allegedly occurred in Crown Melbourne. So as a response to that, we were required to observe the gaming machines and provide a report on when we may have witnessed these items being placed in a machine to enable continuous play.
And that report, do you know if any of your staff had ever seen that occur at Crown Perth?
Yes, they did report that they saw instances of that.
And so what's been done to manage that issue?
So we were, and we continue to provide customers with the advice that they're unable to play using anything to keep continuing the play.
So are people still trying to do it to this day, or is it been stamped out?
I haven't noticed it continuing to occur.
But by saying you haven't noticed it, but you're not really walking the floor though, do you mean that no one's...
It's not been brought to my attention that it's continuing to occur.
Now I'm just going to move on to leave the operational side of things for the moment and deal with training. Now you haven't undertaken any tertiary studies. So
I have, but not completed.
Okay. Now, what about vocational education and training? What have you done any certificate 3s, 4s, diplomas?
No, I haven't.
And what was the tertiary studies you started in?
Bachelor of Arts in International Studies.
Was that over in Adelaide or?
It was, yes, in South Australia.
Now, in terms of your induction program in 2018, you say in paragraph 21...
in 2009 or 2008 when I started
yes,
the induction.
Did I say 18?
Yeah.
I mean 2008, thank you. So paragraph 21 on page 3. Now, as best you can recall, that included induction on operations, I think you say? As best you can recall, was that just about the general, what goes on?
It's about the responsibilities of the role and the processes they would perform, yes.
And so that your role as the gaming machine supervisor that you were coming in as, and then more general employee responsibilities as well?
To the best of my recollection, I would have conducted training, online training in respect to those.
So AML, RSG, health and safety and RSA?
Correct.
Yes. Now, that induction, was it face-to-face or online?
So when I refer to induction, I refer to that as the whole onboarding process, that the role and responsibilities would have been face-to-face with another person performing that role, what we refer to as buddying in that role.
Okay, where it's shadowing
Correct.
someone else?
Yes. And the other training referencing AML, RSG, health and safety, RSA, and others would have been online.
Okay, and...
Some may have been covered in that face-to-face as well.
All right, and so how long were you in this buddying system for?
I'm actually not able to recall. Yeah.
Now, in terms of your AML training. You mentioned in your statement some training you undertook in November 2020.
Correct. Yes.
Did you undertake any AML training between the time you were inducted in 2008 and 2020? So in that intervening period?
So the ongoing online training and the risk awareness training.
What's the ongoing online training that you do?
So that is mandatory training for our team and I believe all employees in relation to AML.
All employees across the casino?
I'm unsure if it's all.
And so and how often does that training occur, the online training?
I believe it was every 2 years.
Is it still every 2 years or has that changed?
It's my understanding the risk awareness training will be annual.
And what's involved in that online training? Is it a scenario, pick A, B, C or D? How should you respond to this?
It can have elements of that. So for staff to interact and try and determine the correct response. It's also informational, so it can provide them information and guidance as to what they're looking for, how they can react, where they escalate matters.
Does it contain sort of videos or?
It can.
Yeah. Does it change year to year or is it the same every year? Or every 2 years?
It can vary, yeah. It may change, it may not change sometimes.
And you say it's compulsory, so does the computer, if you're doing it online, does the computer keep telling you to keep doing it if you haven't done it, or does it recognise when you have done it?
It does if the employee has an email and access to a computer. Not all our employees have that access. However, I run myself weekly reports on online learning and what's due.
Right. So if there was someone in your team that hasn't undertaken that 2 yearly online training, you would go and chase them up, tell them to.
So I provide that outstanding learning report to my shift managers who will then follow up and arrange for it to be completed.
And so in terms of, you mentioned there that some staff don't have email access. What staff are you talking about there?
The gaming machine attendants.
And so would they have access to a computer every shift?
Yes, they do.
And so what are they using the computers for? Is it something they need to check notifications on every time they work, or?
So the computer is used to complete the online learning. So that's a program named Crown Learn. The game machine attendant, as an example, will log their equipment and sign on their card, what we call an attendant card, which allows them access to the gaming machine.
Okay, so like a staff issued card. But apart from the training, would they have any other reason to access computers during their shift?
Unless they wanted to access their rosters and that information, but there's also a terminal they can use back of house for that.
So in terms of escalating any complaints those staff might have if they don't have an email address, what's open to them?
Yep, so the policies are all available on our generic user computers, so I guess the computers that they can use. So those policies are available. Things like submitting a UAR are available, submitting a health and safety hazard or a risk.
All right. I think we've got a bit sidetracked. I think I was initially asking you about the November 2020 training. And yes, you were saying that there were two sorts of trainings you've done since your induction in November 2020. One was the online training every 2 years. What was the other?
So there was Aml Targeted Training, which the team also conducted.
When was that?
That was similar period.
Sorry, between 2008 and 2020?
November 2020.
Oh, in November 2020.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay. So between induction, November 2020, it was just every 2 years there'd be the online refresher training. How long does it take to do that training?
That would vary by employee. So how
long does it take you to do it?
It would take me probably half an hour.
Okay. Now, we'll deal with the November 2020 training. What did that entail? Was that face-to-face?
That was face-to-face, the targeted training.
And who led that training?
Our learning and development coordinator led that training.
And who's that?
Would you like the name of the employee?
Yes.
Oh, okay, John Egm.
And so, what sort of things was he addressing in that training?
He was addressing the suspicious behaviours that staff would look out for, how a customer could launder money, the impact of laundering money or assisting counter-terrorism.
And did you find that it was a more detailed training compared to the online modules you've been doing previously?
I'm not certain how I would. Yeah, I think it's very good training.
Did you learn anything from that training, or was it really just a refresher?
Personally, I personally didn't learn anything new. However, probably new terminologies that we've not used. So.
And then there was the other in-person targeted training in November 2020. Is that
Sorry,
different
that was
to this
what
one?
I was referring to.
Was there another training in November 2020?
I attended AML training for the bot team.
Oh, the business operations.
Correct. Yes.
And what did? I'll just go back to the other training that John Egm did. Who attended? Was that compulsory for all your team to go to that training?
That was compulsory for our supervisors and managers.
Okay, not the.
I don't believe so, no.
Not the other staff. Do you know why it wasn't required for those staff? Was there any discussion about who it's targeted at and why others are excluded from it?
No, I believe it was because our supervisors are the escalation point for all of our staff, so they will assist them and support them in anything they observe.
Mm-hmm. Do you think, though, that those more, shall we say, junior staff, in terms of their position, should have attended that training if they're the ones out on the floor and they're needing to identify these issues? They need to know what to identify before they can escalate.
I think it would assist them if they undertook that training.
Yes, but there's no current plans for that, for them to go to Mr. Egan's training?
There is, which was discussed last week.
Okay.
I feel like I'm just saying that.
Yeah. Now then, if I can just take you back to the AML Business Operations Team training in November, what was that training?
That was similar and went through the new procedures, the joint programs, policies. It was very, very similar.
And now what's your understanding of the new joint policy and how it differs from what was in place before?
I don't understand what difference there is. Our obligations still remain the same, is my understanding.
Yeah, and when you refer to it as a joint policy, does that mean it's Perth and Melbourne, or?
Correct, it's a group policy.
Okay. So you went to this training and it was nothing new in terms of you thought those things were already in place anyway?
Sorry, there is things new know your customer processes and obligations in regards to financial reporting and things like that.
And now, so that was in November 2020. Have you had any training in AML CTF space since then?
Not myself personally, but the team have undertaken training in submitting a UAR, which is an unusual activity report.
Yes, and perhaps I'll get an understanding of what your involvement with AML CTF is first. Day to day, is it something that, if you're not walking the gaming floor, what's your involvement with the AML CTF space?
So I am a level approver of a source of funds. I would assist the AML team with any inquiries they have if they'd like to understand further information.
Now, just the approver of source of funds, what's that in relation to?
If we request a customer to provide details about the source of their funds they are presenting.
Is that something that's been in place for a long time at Crown, or is that a new?
No, it's new.
And is that queries arising if someone comes with a cheque or there's money in a bank account that there's a query over? Is that the sort of scenarios?
If someone provides large sum of cash.
And so if that occurs, you'll get a phone call or an email about that always, or just sometimes?
There's a number of approvers, so I may be one of the approvers. There may be other people contacted ahead of myself.
And what's the process in deciding whether a source of funds is approved or not? What sort of checks do you do?
So I believe we just check. Yeah, no, I'm not sure.
Have you had to approve a source of funds?
I haven't, no.
Okay. And so when did this process come into play? You said recently. Are we talking the last 6 months, 12 months?
I would say the last 6 months.
Okay. And so there's been no one has come to you yet asking to approve a source of funds?
No, correct.
And you're not quite sure of the procedure if that does happen. If it happened tomorrow, you'd have to find out what you need to do. Is that
so? We're currently, formulating the procedure.
I see.
So we're reviewing one that already exists from table games and reviewing it for our department.
And so that's one of your responsibilities in the AML space. Do you have anything to do with the UARs at all?
Not unless I submit it.
Mm-hmm.
So my team can submit a UAR. So often they will notify me if they submit a UAR.
So what's the form that say it's a staff member who's seen something concerning on the gaming floor, if they don't have an email address, how do they go about submitting a UAR?
So very similar to how they complete their online learning, there is a computer with a site that's accessible for them to submit the UAR form. And so will you hear about any UARs that your team submits? Is that part of the process, or does it just go? It doesn't directly come to me. No, I don't have access to them.
Okay. Where does the UAR go to?
Goes to the AML team.
Directly to them?
Correct.
And then the staff member reporting through the UAR process, do you know if they hear back from the AML team about?
I don't think they necessarily do.
Do you think that they should hear back?
I think a lot of information is confidential and may not be able to be divulged to certain people, so no, not necessarily.
But do you think maybe from a junior staff's perspective, it might provide, say, reinforcement of, that UAR that did lead us down a track, and it might be worth having a process to inform the staff that they've done the right thing, and actually it was a bit suspicious, shall we say.
I don't know if we can divulge that information.
I see. Now the UARs, how long have they been the process to report? Perhaps I'll go back a step. From your point of view, what are the things that your team are looking out for which would cause them to lodge one of those unusual activity reports?
Yes, sure. So things like placing money into a machine and not having minimal play or no play at all.
What else? Just, are there any other examples you can
Yeah,
think
well,
of?
what we ask them to look out for is things like jackpot purchasing. So if someone has won money, as an example, someone will come along and try and purchase it from them.
I see.
People placing lots of little bits of cash into a machine and cashing out multiple tickets.
And so those sorts of things is what would cause them to lodge a UAR. So how long has the UAR process been around?
The UAR process, I believe, has been around for more than 6 months. Prior to that, a similar process was called a suspicious matter report.
And it was the same, is it the same process, just a different name?
No, it's a new form
What's the
online.
Okay, so an SMR was not an online form?
No,
That was a paper form, was it?
yes, correct.
And staff could fill that out and it would go up to...
Often we would call surveillance and they would complete the SMR for us.
Oh, I see. Have you ever had cause to lodge a UAR or an SMR in your time at Crown?
I would have made calls to lodge them. I'm not able to recall specific details, but my team are able to lodge them themselves. So.
And so the SMRs, did you hear about when those things were lodged, or is it
Similar,
just
it would be
bypassing?
similar feedback. So if my team told me, I would be aware.
Now, you mentioned at paragraph 27 of your statement on page 4 that you joined the AML CTF committee in September 2019.
Correct.
So how did that come about?
I was invited to join it.
And who invited you?
I don't know the specific person. It would have been someone from group AML team.
And do you know why you were asked to join?
No, just a greater participation from our gaming representation, I imagine.
Did
That's
anyone...
speculating, sorry, I'm not sure.
Was, no, that's fine. So no one communicated saying there's a gap in the EGM space from an AML perspective? None of that? You didn't
No.
hear anything like that? And now, so you've been there 2 years in that committee now. Do you contribute to these meetings?
I'm unsure how many I've attended, minimal meetings I've attended.
How regular are these meetings?
They're not regular anymore. That committee doesn't exist anymore.
Yes, I think you say it's the Financial Crime Working Group and Financial Crime Oversight Committee, is that right?
Correct.
So has the AML CTF committee formally dissolved, or is it just in abeyance?
To my understanding, it's formally dissolved.
And so do you recall the last meeting that you attended?
No, I don't recall the date.
Do you recall what your contributions to that meeting have been over the last couple of years?
We'd review reports, we'd review new policies coming, we'd review behaviour that we look for on gaming machines.
Were you providing any reports to that committee at all?
No, I wasn't.
And the things that would be discussed at those meetings, the AML CTF committee meetings, were they things that you'd filter down to your staff as necessary if things came up in those meetings?
Yes, if necessary.
Can you think of anything that caused you to inform your staff about? Was there any sort of hot topics?
The hot topic for my staff would probably have been identification that we accepted.
In terms of the Crown Rewards program?
Correct, yes.
What was there an issue in relation to that?
No, but just a change.
It was like a mitigation of risk strategy rather than a problem identified?
Correct.
Now, the Financial Crime Working Group and Financial Crime Oversight Committee, have they started yet, do you know?
I'm unsure.
And who's driving those working groups and the committee?
I'm unsure.
Now,
Sorry, I could comment. It would be the financial crime team.
and they're in Melbourne?
So there are team members in AML and financial crimes in Perth. The group management is in Melbourne.
And that's Stephen Blackburn?
Correct.
Yes. Now, at paragraph 28 of your statement, you talk about recently preparing a risk report. Firstly, what was that report? What did it entail?
So we identify risks within our business and controls we have in place to prevent them from occurring.
And could you just give me a summary of the risks and the controls that are in place?
There's a lot of them. An example?
Yes, please.
So as an example, there would be the risk that our systems would fail.
As in like a power blackout sort of thing?
Yes.
And so what's the control in place for that risk?
Yep, we would be that we have generators, backup generators. We also have manual procedures for our systems.
Mm-hmm. So was this a risk report not only relating to AML CTF but just more broadly?
Relating to our whole department.
Whole department. And who did you prepare that report for?
That's prepared with our risk team. So I'm unsure who it is formally provided to. I believe it constitutes a board report.
And so did you compile that solely, or did you get input from your team members? Or
I had input from a team member, and I also prepared it with someone from the risk team.
And so as far as you're aware, that report has gone to a board in Perth to consider?
I'm unsure which board it's gone to consider.
And how recently did you undertake this task?
Within the last 3 months.
Mm-hmm. Now, just I'm going to circle back to AML specifically. At paragraph 29, you talk about the bill note acceptor limit of $100 to prevent bill stuffing. When did that limit come about?
To my knowledge, it's been $100 since I've been there.
Okay. So long-standing.
Correct.
And is it the case that it really just slows down potential bill stuffing? As in, people can still, if they were...
Essentially,
if
they
the
could
patience, they
do
could.
it 50 times to get $10,000, sure.
Yes. And are people monitoring that vulnerability? If someone is putting in $100 for an extended period of time, is that one of the things that your staff is looking for?
My staff would be vigilant in monitoring for that, yes.
And what about people doing that activity across multiple machines? Is that something that might occur also, that someone could take over?
A lot of people, you mean?
So like one person could have, say, 4 machines and
I've not seen that behaviour before, and I've not had that reported before. But essentially, someone could, yes.
Now, the electronic table games limit, you mentioned that's recently changed from $9,995 to $2,000.
Correct.
Why was that only recently changed?
I'm not able to comment. That wasn't our decision.
Who made that decision?
Table games?
Table games.
Would that be a convenient time?
A convenient time. Thank you, Commissioner.
Mrs. Smith will take morning tea now. If you could be back here in time to recommence at 11:30, thank you, and we will adjourn until 11:30. Thank you. Please be seated. Yes, Ms Spencer.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mrs Smith, I just wanted to canvass one more topic in relation to AML. A couple more questions. Paragraph 37 of your witness statement, so that's on page 6. You talk about there how the AML team can flag patrons on the system to alert your team to any issues. Now, I just want to understand, is that something that your staff would check for daily? So those that are not computer-based roles, is it part of their routine to check the computer for any of those AML signals?
Those alerts are only accessible to those who have access to our loyalty programs. So it would be if they were accessing a member's account, there may be a comment or a code on there to identify information is required or action is required.
They're not it's not something that the team is proactively checking for. Are there any marks against?
No, that's not how those alerts.
All right, I see. Thank you. Now, just moving on to RSG, the Responsible Service of Gaming. Now, dealing with the training aspect first, you first undertook training when you were employed in Sky City in Adelaide, and you've already confirmed that it was part of your induction in 2008. So, as we did with the AML, I'm just trying to gauge from the induction time in 2008 until now, what's the RSG training that you've undertaken in that time period?
So very similar with the AML, it's the mandatory online learning component. And then more recently, my team have also undergone Certificate 3. And as part of that, they were required to complete accredited training, which I believe is provide services to responsible gaming. I think that's the name of the course. So they all completed that as part of the Certificate 3.
And that was just the 70, I think you say 78 people in your team up undertaking that training for the Cert 3?
So it was all members of our team who were enrolled in the Certificate 3 at the time. And then those that are newly inducted undergo similar content, however it's not accredited. And then more recently, the managers and supervisors have undergone responsible gaming for managers training.
I'll just deal with the accredited training first. Is that face-to-face or is that an online?
Face-to-face.
Face-to-face. And when, is that when you have a new cohort coming through during that Certificate 3 in hospitality, everyone does it, or are you referencing a particular point in time when all these people did it?
There was a particular point in time where our whole team was enrolled into Certificate 3 in hospitality.
I see. And when was that?
I'm unable to recall the specific date, sorry.
In the last sort of 5 years? Or do you
Last
think?
5 years,
Last 5
yes.
years. All right. And did you attend that training also?
I did not conduct that full training, no.
You participate, I mean not conduct,
No,
rather.
I would have attended it, but I wouldn't have participated in the whole module, no.
Yes, okay. And do you recall, was that like a whole day on that particular topic, or?
I don't recall the length of time for that module, no.
Okay, and how did it compare to, you talk about the online training. Well, firstly, the online training, was that every 2 years like the AML training, or is that more frequent?
It was every 2 years, it's now every year.
Okay. And when did that change?
This year.
And what's the structure of that online sort of training? Is it multiple choice or?
Very similar to the AML, so there may be videos, there may be information, there may be questions the team have to answer.
And I think we spoke of earlier, it's someone in your team that creates all those learning?
Not the online learning.
Not the online learning? No. Who's responsible for pulling all that together?
I'm unsure.
And it's the same idea that every 2 years a little notification on the computer that the training's outstanding and it needs to be done? And just back to my question about the difference between that Cert 3 module and this online training, do you recall of any differences between that training? Was one in more detail than the other?
that module would have been much more detailed. It would have had employee interactions, so I know that they would go up and find aspects related to responsible gaming. And they would be assessed, so they would be provided with a workbook they'd have to complete and be assessed on that, and they would have to pass that training.
Oh, okay. And who was that? An external provider, or was that someone in-house?
That was in-house but accredited. I'm unsure how that works. It's
certificate or something. So that was someone from the RSG team delivering that training?
No, that was our learning and development coordinator, or at the time it could have been another manager training.
Mm-hmm. Do you find when you were doing the RSG training every 2 years that it was repetitive, or there was new materials coming in?
Very similar to AML, it would sometimes change, but not always.
Okay. And was it the same quarter? I think you said AML maybe took you 30 minutes to complete. Was it the same for RSG online training, or?
I tend to think, I believe it was longer.
Now, have you had any training on the harmful aspects of EGMs in particular? Have you had any training provided to you or your team?
We discuss harmful aspects of gaming, but I've not had any other specific training other than we've spoken about.
Okay, and so no training on their addictive nature at all?
Not specifically discussing the addictive nature of gaming machines you're referring to. We've not specifically discussed the addictive nature, that it may be addictive.
And so no training from external providers either?
Not here, no.
And no research has been provided to you or your staff about the harmful effects of EGMs at all? Or other electronic games?
Yeah, sure. So I've been provided with research as part of my role in the Responsible Gaming Committee. I've been provided with research papers that may discuss that.
Okay, I'm just going to ask you about that Responsible Gaming Management Committee now. You joined that in April 2020?
Correct.
And so how did your membership of that committee come about?
Again, I was invited to join that.
Do you recall who invited you?
I recall my direct manager first notified me that I would be participating. The invitation, I believe, was initially received by Josh Preston.
And it was, so your immediate manager, that's Shannon Blake?
Correct.
And so was any reason given to you as to why you were required to join that committee?
Nothing specific I can recall. Again, that we wanted more participation from our gaming representatives.
And who's on that? You're still on that committee currently?
Correct.
And who's on that committee?
Oh, there's a number of people.
Well, let's start with who chairs the meetings.
It's also chaired by the General Manager of Responsible Gaming in Perth.
And what's their name?
Melanie, I can't remember. Straline.
Yes.
Folks, yeah.
And just getting an idea of who else is on that committee. Anyone else from the EGM space?
Would you like names or roles?
Yes, please.
Names?
Yes.
So
names and roles would be
okay.
perfect, but let's see how we go.
Shannon Blake, that's my direct manager, obviously Executive General Manager of Gaming Machines. Richard Smith, who's the Director of Premium Gaming Machines.
And he just deals with the Pearl Room side of
the premium operations, so Pearl Room and Riverside.
Yes, sorry, continue.
That would be the representatives from Gaming Machines. Then obviously you've got Lonnie Bossy, who is a CEO. Would have table games representation. So Corey Cairns, Executive General Manager of Table Games. Chris Shoemakers, he's my equivalent in table games. Indra Davis, who's Richard's equivalent in table games.
Yeah,
just avoiding the names.
Yes, that's
You've got Danielle Reynolds, who is Marketing Analytics. You've got Kelly Townsend, who is the General Manager of Marketing.
And so do any of these people join at the same time of you? Or others been sort of long-standing members of that
To
committee?
my recollection, my equivalent in table games joined at the same time as me, and also the director of premium gaming table games joined.
So really it's just a cross-section across electronic gaming, table games.
Across
and then
the
executive.
business,
Yeah, across the business. Now, you say in your statement that committee meets 3 times a year, is that right?
Correct. Yes.
And so when was your last meeting?
August.
August this year?
Correct.
And do you recall what was what things were discussed at that meeting in August this year?
Yes, I'll try to the best of my recollection. We discussed the reports on results of customer interactions they had. We discussed the structure of their department. We discussed policy updates.
The structure of the RSG department?
Correct. We discuss their services that they provide and their facilities. We discuss research papers.
What sort of, are there current research papers being considered, or?
From my recollection, they're from the Australasian Gaming Council, the majority of them.
And were they in relation to just gambling generally, or is it like electronic gaming machines? Or?
No, it's in relation to all gambling and wagering.
And is that research that Crown has caused to be undertaken?
No.
Or is it just like some general research someone has found?
It's industry research.
Industry research that someone's found and just given to the group to consider?
I'm unsure how it's comes about.
In terms of, have you been told to consider that research, or
Yes, we do. We consider it and read it and
formulate an action plan, or in relation to anything that might come out of that paper, or?
if required, yes.
Is there any research currently being caused to be undertaken by Crown that you're aware of?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Can you think of anything that's on the action list for that committee at the moment?
On the action list. So I believe play period reporting is on the action list. There's changes to be implemented with play period reporting.
Play period in terms of a gaming machine, or just generally how long someone's playing at the casino?
Generally in terms of all gaming.
And what's being looked at there?
Reducing the maximum time they can play or be on site.
Okay, and that's currently 18 hours, is it?
It is, yes.
Yes. And so that's under discussion whether that's the appropriate time allocation.
It's under review, so
Under review.
yeah, it is changing.
Now, I know you've only been on that committee a short period of time, but what's your sense of 3 times a year in terms of the meeting? Do you think that's sufficient, or that committee really needs to be meeting more regularly?
It may be difficult for me to say because I have a lot of interaction with responsible gaming teams, so I have more regular interaction with them than just 3 times a year.
Can you tell me about those interactions that you have with the RSG team?
Yeah, sure. So I meet with the managers or the coordinators or members of the team to discuss how they can support my staff and how our team can support them, how we can broaden their understanding and knowledge and share with them their responsibilities more frequently. Obviously, we're discussing the play period reporting and how operational team can support that initiative.
Now, the supporting your staff comment, how is it that the RSG, I'm just trying to think what extra support your team might be. Is this in relation to if your staff identify someone of concern?
The additional support is really them meeting with our team, so they may attend our staff briefings, they may attend the desks and have a conversation.
Okay. And then the staff briefings that you just mentioned then, is that something that you run?
That's something our supervisors will deliver to our staff before they start their shift.
Oh, okay. Like, is it like a handover from the
Similar, yes.
the staff just finishing their shift? And what sorts of things are discussed at those staff briefings?
All sorts of things related to their role and the complex, what's on, what's happening on that day, things they need to be reminded of.
Now, have you ever had cause to refer anyone to RSG? Is that part of your, has that ever been part of your role to?
Yes, I have, yes.
And is that more in the past when you were not in operations so much, but when you're on the gaming floor, or is?
It would be both. So I would have referred people I interacted with on the gaming floor. I would have referred people who I've received customer feedback from.
All right. Now I just want to, you talk about it, paragraph 46 on page 7 of your statement. You talk about the play period reporting software.
Mm-hmm.
And you say that at 12 hours, a consecutive play alert is sent on to responsible gaming team.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why it's at 12 hours?
I don't specifically, but I have been advised there was research initially that 12 hours was a period to consider.
So that was a decision made well before you started at Crown?
No, because the play period reporting only recently, this 12 hours only recently changed.
Oh, okay. When did that change?
I recall the date, maybe 6 to 12 months ago.
Oh, okay. I see. And going back to, so there'll be an alert to the RG team at 12 hours and then again at 15 hours, and someone from RG will approach the patron, is that right?
At 15 hours it would be a member of the operational team, so that would...
Someone from your team, yes?
Possibly, yes.
Okay.
It would depend on where the customer was playing.
Oh, in terms of whether they were in the Pearl Room or the main gaming floor?
And the product, so table games, gaming machines.
I see. And then when a patron reaches that 18-hour mark, are they asked to leave?
They're spoken to again at 17 hours and reminded, but yes, at the 18-hour mark, if they're still on site, they're asked to leave and provided with a 24-hour barring.
24-hour barring. Have there ever been instances that you're aware of where patrons will just be offered, say, a hotel room to go and sleep for a few hours and then they can come back and restart the 18-hour clock?
Not that I'm aware of.
Now, just in terms of these play period reporting, that's only in respect of carded play, is that right?
So to be first identified as being on site, you need to be carded, yes.
So really my question is, the RG team's only getting these alerts for people that are playing with their card?
Correct.
So people that are doing uncarded play, are they monitored at all for this 18-hour time period?
So the operational staff, if they recognise someone being on site for that period of time, they would notify the RG team.
Are there sorts of things that your staff are looking out for?
They have, yes.
Because say it's like, I don't imagine anyone has an 18-hour shift, so is there like any sort of handover, watch, you know, the lady in the pink top over there, she's been there for X amount of hours. Does that sort of thing happen?
It has, yes, and they may often return, obviously, the next day for their shift and may still notice the person here.
And so in those instances, those patrons are also spoken to about the time limits?
If identified, yes.
Are the time limits advertised anywhere in the complex?
I don't believe they are specifically advertised currently.
Is there a plan to start advertising that?
I know there is a communication plan when the new play period alerts are rolled out.
So the play period alerts we were just discussing, the 12, 15, 17 and 18, they're not currently rolled out?
They are, but
Yes.
there is a new times.
Oh,
new
yes, I see, because you were
periods.
saying the 18 hours is up for review.
Correct.
Okay. Now, can you give the Commission an idea of what your team day to day does on the RSG front outside of the play period thing that's come in the last 6 months?
Yeah, sure. So they would be monitoring, I guess, our customers for observable signs.
And what are those observable signs?
Yeah, so there's obviously quite a lot. So someone may be distressed, they may self-disclose that they have a problem, may want to speak to someone, they may be doing frequent visits to the ATM, so they're not planning their spend well, they may be talking about their losses and not being able to cope with their losses, trying to get their money, recoup their losses, change in appearance and behaviour. Other people can report to us changes in people.
And now, just on the ATMs, are you aware of limits on the ATMs in terms of cash withdrawals?
My understanding is the limit is $400.
And is that only per ATM? Oh, sorry. Is that only for specific ATMs? Are there other ATMs in the whole footprint of the hotels and the restaurants where the limit's higher than that?
I'm unsure.
Are your staff, and are you aware of the self-exclusion, barring and timeout options?
Correct, yes.
What's your understanding of the timeout?
That they may ask customers to have a period of time out rather than self-excluding, so they may choose, I'm unsure what the minimum or maximum period is, but they may choose to not visit for a little while rather than self-excluding for the full 12 months.
And are you ever involved with patrons in their discussions with RSG? So just thinking back to the people you might have referred to RSG in your time there, do you sort of hand them over to RSG and that's at the end of it, or do you stay sort of involved in their journey, for want of a better word?
No, I generally wouldn't remain involved in their journey.
Now, you talk about in your statement that the Responsible Gaming share faces of excluded patrons due to RG concerns. How are these shared with the staff, amongst the staff?
So we have a television screen, much like that one there, in our back of house office where our operational staff are and where they meet, and that will have the faces displayed on it that they need to be aware of.
Okay, so they're not, are they also emailed as well for the people that have access to emails?
Yes.
Yep, but for the staff that don't have the email, they would be checking the TV
Correct.
screen for every shift.
Correct.
Now, I just want to touch on the Crown Rewards program. What's the process for signing up to that, generally?
In a nutshell,
Yes.
so the customer will come in, they will present or speak with one of our staff, they'll provide identification to join the program. We will enter their personal information into the system to check that they aren't already a member and then join them.
And you spoke earlier this morning about the identification changes for the Crown Rewards program. Mm-hmm. What was the accepted identification then, and then what are the changes? I'm just trying to understand.
No, that's fine. I won't know the specific identifications, but generally it was, if you're familiar with Category A and Category B, you would
never have enough of one of them, yes.
yeah. So the major change was that we used to accept Category A and Category B. So we would accept things like a seniors card and a Medicare card. Mm-hmm. Now you must provide that photo identification. So
okay, so the real change is the photo ID now required to join Crown Rewards?
Specific photo ID, yes.
Now, at paragraph 52 of your statement on page 8, you talk about a working group you're involved in around the Crown Rewards system.
Mm-hmm.
Who's in that working
So there will be members of group loyalty.
Thank you. Sorted, not by me.
Sorry, continue.
Sorry, I think my question was who's in the working group for the Crown Rewards?
So as an example, there would be members of group loyalty, so that falls within marketing. There may be some marketing representatives from Crown Perth, IT representatives that assist with system development, other departments, so maybe table games, F&B, other areas.
And how long has this working group been around?
I'm unable to, I'm unsure.
Is that a recent invention or
No,
long
no.
time
So
standing?
I'm actually on two different groups related to loyalty. So one is a working group led by group loyalty. That has been around for, I think, a couple of years. And the other one is led by table games, the equivalent of My Position table games. That's a program or a working group that's come out of the business operations team, and that has been meeting, I believe, maybe for a year.
Okay, and are they regular catch-ups with these working groups?
The first one mentioned, led by the group loyalty, hasn't been held for some time, and the other one is held regularly, I believe, monthly.
What's on the hit list, so to speak, of the business operations loyalty working group at the moment?
So it's talking about any initiatives we have up and coming. So as an example, our parking, so automating that system for our members. It would talk about any other impacts, so our regrade periods when we regrade membership, and any impact on the team, any changes to policy or procedure.
So that's working out what, because there's tiered membership, is that right?
Correct.
And so is that working out any changes to what people of certain tiers, what they can get? What's included in their
we could
membership?
discuss that detail, yes.
Now, are these working groups also looking at ways to increase turnover for Crown Perth through the loyalty program?
Those working groups wouldn't discuss that detail, no.
All right. And do they address things like how to keep patrons coming back on site? So you mentioned
And to increase visitation.
Yes.
Those, I don't think that would be something specifically those working groups would discuss, no.
Is that something you deal with day to day? Is that one of your part of your sort of role, is how to think of those ways
yes.
to increase patronage
Yes.
from those members?
Yes.
And who are you working with in that regard? Is that something you're working with marketing on? Or?
Generally, it would be with my department and with marketing.
Now, in your time at Crown, are you aware if any consideration has been given to the rewards program in the context of responsible service of gaming?
I'm aware that we discuss with them any changes, I guess, to the rewards program.
So has there been any discussions about whether Crown Rewards program is like a help or a hindrance in terms of the delivery of responsible gaming? Has that been looked at specifically in your knowledge?
I've not been involved in any specific meetings related to that.
Who would that fall to if that was being looked at?
As the loyalty program is owned, I guess, by group marketing, it would perhaps be looked at by them.
And is that someone sitting in Melbourne who's the head of group marketing? Now, the play safe limits through Crown Rewards in terms of time spent and losses that can be said. Is the ability to do that advertised at all?
It's available in brochures, yes, and it's advertised on our website.
Where are the brochures?
The brochures can be across the gaming floor, so they can be at tables, they can be at the desks. We have brochures at what we call a gaming information terminal. I believe it's also available on the website, on the app. We did do a communication piece to our members as well, notifying them of the availability.
And that by communication, you mean an email to your members? And was that a recent
It would
email?
have been maybe in the last 2 months.
So when the PlaySafe limits linking with the Crown Rewards, in terms of what the patron can set, is that a new phenomenon?
No, it's been around for some years.
Longer than you've been at Crown, or?
No, I don't believe longer than I've been at Crown.
Do you have an idea of what proportion of members utilise this function?
The PlaySafe limits,
Yes.
very small group.
Very small group.
Would you like the exact number?
Do you know?
I believe there's 18 people
Okay.
who have a limit set.
All right, thank you. And so what happens, and do you know whether those, in those 18 instances, whether Crown staff had told those patrons, did you know we have this, why don't we set this up for you, or if it's something that they sort out? Do you know the specifics around that?
I couldn't comment on all scenarios. I do know that it's supported and initiated by both the Crown Rewards staff and the responsible gaming staff, and premium team can also initiate it.
Now, do you get reports on what particular patrons linked to the Crown Rewards have the highest turnover for for gaming machines?
It is reported in shift reports, daily shift reports, yes.
And when you read those reports, do you ever refer, if there's a name that continually comes up, do you ever refer those people to responsible gaming, or ensure that someone tells them about these PlaySafe limits? Do you do anything with that information?
No, the reports would be on the premium gaming shift reports.
Okay, not on your reports.
So, no.
But you'd still get reports on who's turning over the most on the main gaming floor?
We don't specifically run that report.
Now, what happens if a PlaySafe limit linked to the Crown Rewards program? What happens when that's reached?
The member will no longer be able to earn points. An alert is also sent to the RG team.
And do you know if the RG team then go and speak with that person, or is it just a computer says no kind of scenario, like the card won't?
As an example, I know an alert was triggered a couple of weeks ago, and it was actually a false alarm because a card, very technical, but a card out record didn't occur, so it was a false alarm, and the RG team attended that. So based on that, I assume they attend the alerts.
Flagging that there was a going over the limit when there actually
Correct.
wasn't.
Yes.
Now, the player activity statements, you talk about that in your statement too, and I might just bring up that document you refer to. That's CRW.701.005.5076. That should just appear in the screen in front of you, Mrs. Smith. Now, just firstly in relation...
Can I just interrupt? I understand that there may be some sensitive information because it does relate to patrons.
It's a
got
test
membership
account.
number.
It's a test account.
Thank you.
Now, the player activity statements, such as this one, a patron has to request one of those? It doesn't...
They don't have to request it if you're considering, so they can visit what we call a voucher issuance kiosk, and they can elect to print that themselves from that kiosk.
I guess, so that's really, they're electing to get that report. What I'm trying to ascertain is whether they're provided to Crown Rewards members as a matter of course?
No,
They're not provided?
no.
And in these, the information that this report spits out is only in relation to carded play, is that right?
Yes, sorry, just in relation to they're not provided.
Yes.
So at Crown Perth, they're not provided as a matter of course.
Oh, okay, is it different in Melbourne? Is that,
Yes.
oh, okay, I see. So, I don't think you answered my question about
My
carded.
apologies.
No,
Yeah,
that's
sorry.
all right. Carded play, so it's just records relating
It
to
is
carded
only
play.
carded play, carded
All right.
activity.
And the availability of these statements, are they advertised at all?
Yes, equally the same as play safe limits.
So they're in those brochures you were
Correct.
the pamphlets you were speaking about? And do your staff also tell patrons about those?
They will notify them. They're able to print a statement. Yes.
All right. And the kiosks where they can get them printed, how many of those are on the gaming footprint?
Oh, geez, I'd be guessing.
More than 10?
More than 10. Yes. And they're also in the Pell Room.
I see.
And we also have one located off the gaming floor.
So at these kiosks, patrons can print these reports. What else can they do at these? These are unmanned kiosks. They're just like a
Correct.
computer
This
touch
is-
screen or something, are
Yes. Yes.
they? And so what other sorts of things can they get from those kiosks?
Yep. So they can get information on the program, information on their tier. They can access promotions if they're available, the terms and conditions of promotions. They can redeem their points for complimentary chips.
Okay. Now, in terms of other ways these activity statements can be accessed, Crown Rewards has an app, does it not?
Correct, yes.
Can these sorts of reports be accessed on the app?
It's my understanding not currently.
And the play safe limits, can they be set on the app?
No.
Is that something that Crown is perhaps looking at doing?
Correct, yes.
Now, just looking at this example, and there's the reference there to the net amount won or lost. The patron doesn't actually get a record of their turnover, do they?
No, correct.
It's just an indication of their end position at the end of that day.
Carded, yes.
Yes. So by way of an example, if someone's playing on an Egm for 12 hours and they're sinking, say, $10,000 into that machine, but at the end of the day, they end up $100 ahead, all that will show is just that $100 on this statement. Do you think that's a very clear way of presenting the information?
Can you be more specific?
Do you think the turnover should also be shown on this statement?
No.
And why do you say that?
I don't believe a lot of people understand turnover.
And can a patron, if they want to find out how much they've been putting into machines or playing carded play in whatever forum, is there a way they can find out what they've spent?
Like their turnover,
Yes.
you mean?
Yes.
Yes, so they can make a formal request that's directed to the legal department.
And is that ability advertised?
No.
So a patron would only find out about it if they made an inquiry
Correct.
with the staff. Is that something, that ability, is that something your staff would know about? So if they got asked on the gaming floor by a patron, would they know that there's that avenue of, yes, just write to the legal department, you can get that information?
So it depends the staff you're referring to. So as an example, the attendant would refer them to the Crown Rewards desk, who then they would have that
They
information.
would have that information, all right. Now, note 6 on this form says that you can set a net loss limit. Is there any ability to set a maximum turnover limit?
No.
Is there, sorry,
No,
cut you
no,
off there.
no.
Is there any ability to do that at all at Crown, to set a maximum turnover limit?
No, there's not.
And just on this activity statement, how far back does the information go when you print it? Is it everything? So if someone's been a patron for, say, 30 years, is it going to spit out 30 years of data, or is it just, the last 12 months?
So from my recollection, it will, if you automatically print, it will print from the last statement. However, at the desk, you can select the period in which to print.
I see. Now, in paragraph 44 of your witness statement, if that document can be taken down, operator, thank you. Now, on paragraph 44 on page 7, you say that in July 2021, 1,500 player activity statements were printed. Now, that's from some 162,000 active rewards members that you refer to, paragraph 66 of your statement. I just want to get a sense of the 1,500, and is that a fairly average figure of per month? Is it quite high up or low down? Where does the 1,500 sort of sit?
I would be speculating. I would imagine it's around the same each month.
Okay. Now, in terms of the Crown Rewards communications with patrons, with the Crown Rewards members, does that generally occur by email?
It does now, yes.
And is there an ability for those members to switch off or unsubscribe from emails?
Correct. Yes, absolutely.
And you talk about the Crown Rewards hotline in your statement. What's that?
So it's a phone number you can call to speak to a member of the Crown Rewards team.
So it's just like a general inquiry
Correct.
number. Now, points are collected when a patron spends money anywhere in the Crown footprint, if they're a rewards member?
If they're participating outlets, yes.
Okay. What's an example of something that's not participating? Is it the case that most are participating?
Majority of outlets participating, yes.
Anything on the gaming footprint that's not participating?
Trackside and TAB.
Now, what can those points be redeemed on?
So they can be redeemed to pay for a hotel stay, for their restaurant bill. They can be redeemed for complimentary chips, or they can be redeemed, what we refer to as point play, on the gaming machines.
All right. So
Sorry, there's one other thing.
Yes.
They can also be redeemed online for a gift card.
Oh, okay. And so the points play, that's effectively acquiring credit for the EGMs?
We refer to it as non-cashable credit. Non-cashable credit.
Okay, could you just explain that concept for me?
Yeah. They convert their points via point play, and they convert it to what we refer to as extra play. So I guess you could liken it to calling it a free game. So they must start with the credit and initiate the first bet with their own money.
I see.
And then that extra play will then be deducted from their extra play balance and refund their bet to the credit meter.
Okay. So do you find that a lot of Crown Rewards members use this points play?
Yes.
Like a majority of Crown Rewards members? I'm just trying to get what might be a helpful gauge.
I don't think you would say a majority, because it would really be probably people that have a preference for gaming machines.
Now, can the points play be redeemed in Perth and Crown Melbourne?
So points earned in Crown Perth need to be transferred when they are in the alternate property, so Crown Melbourne.
But there is that ability to use the points play on EGMs in Melbourne?
I don't think they call it the same terminology.
Right.
So that would be their own system.
But it sounds like they just call it something else?
Yes.
Yes, all right. Is there an ability to load cash or monetary value onto the rewards card?
Yes, that's referred to as cashless or card play.
And who is that facility? Is that open to all Crown Rewards members?
Only Pell Room members.
Only Pell Room members. Do you have much to do with that?
My
putting on
team will assist with faults related to card, EGM faults.
And, sorry, EGM faults within the Pearl Room, is that
Correct.
EGM faults in the Pearl Room related to
Yes.
carded
Card play.
play? Cashless, the cashless EGM play?
Cashless or card play.
Okay. And what sorts of issues, faults would be occurring?
It may lock their card, it may not transfer.
The
The
cash on the
credit,
card to the...
yes.
All right. Does that happen
Infrequently.
Infrequently. All right. And is anyone in your team involved in the loading up of the Crown Rewards card of that money?
No,
That's the case. And I think I already asked you this, but I can't recall what you said. Is it open to many patrons to use
Pearl Room
that?
members
Just
only.
Pearl Room, thank you. Now, just in terms of the membership tiers, am I correct in understanding that there's status points, and to move to the next tier, you've got to accumulate a certain amount of status points?
Status credits, yes.
Status credits. And so there are 4 tiers, is that right?
Member,
Maybe
silver, platinum, 5.
5? And how do patrons earn status credits as opposed to points?
Yes, so they earn status credits based on their points earned. So
All right.
there's either non-gaming or gaming points that can earn status credits. So 500 gaming points will earn 1 status credit, or 1,500 non-gaming points will earn a status
So they
credit.
just convert automatically if they haven't been used? So like a patron will have to leave?
We don't remove those points from
No,
them.
but say if the patron wants their 500 points to convert to a status credit, they've got to make sure they just don't use those 500 points.
No, it automatically accrues them a status credit.
All right. Oh, I see. Thank you. Now, what's the fastest you've seen a patron progress through those tiers through to, I think Black is the highest? Black is the highest Crown Rewards tier?
I couldn't comment on how fast someone progressed to a black tier. Black is by invitation only.
All right. And Platinum is just below that. That's a status. You've got to reach a certain amount of status credits to get to that point. And is it the case that if you're a Platinum or a black carded player, you're not on the main gaming floor?
No, you may be. You may play anywhere.
Okay. And the gold patrons also?
Correct.
Do you need a specific status level to play in the Pearl Room or the Riverside Room?
Riverside Room, you must be silver and above, but obviously you can play as a guest without any tier, without a card.
Oh, in the Riverside Room?
Yes, you just must access with a member.
Okay, and the Pearl Room?
Pearl
the
Room
same thing
is
apply?
eligible to apply for gold and above members.
And those Pearl Room members, they can bring guests along also? Are checks ever done, as someone moves through the tiers, are checks done as to a patron's financial capacity?
Yes, not necessarily as they move through tiers. That's based on win or loss.
How do you mean it's based on win or loss? I'm not sure I understand.
So there's a threshold at what point we conduct a significant player review.
Is this what you were talking about earlier?
With the due diligence?
Yes.
Yes.
So is this a fairly new
Yes.
concept's probably not the right
Process?
word. Process, thank you. So when did this come into play?
Be within the last 6 months.
And so what's the due diligence that you would do to ascertain that? Is it financial capacity you're really trying to work out?
So the significant player review, and there would also be a check of public and paid records into the player, and a source of wealth may form part of that process as well,
And where do
which
you,
is also referred to as a patron declaration form.
So that a patron might be asked, can you tell us about your financial circumstances?
Correct.
And that's just rolled out in the last few months.
Correct.
Has it been utilised yet?
Yes.
And has it found to be quite useful?
Useful in terms
In
of...
terms of, I guess one measure would be, have you, sorry, I lost my train of thought now. I'm reading post-its.
Sorry.
Um,
Useful in terms of...
yes, in terms of, is someone disqualified from a certain tier of membership because you're not satisfied with the financial information that's come back?
To my understanding, yes.
And you think that's occurred already?
Yes.
Patrons have been excluded?
To my understanding, yes.
Okay. And are we talking about a couple of patrons or have there been a number?
I wouldn't know the number.
And are you involved in, what's your team doing in terms of those checks? You listed about 4 different things, public and private records, I think.
So those checks are conducted by the gaming integrity team. That's not my team.
Okay. Do you ever flag patrons with the gaming integrity team that you think that due diligence ought to be undertaken?
In terms of, yes, if we were unsure of where their funds had come from, yes.
But this is only
I have not yet, though.
okay, it's because it's a fairly recent process,
Correct.
right? Okay. And so previously when someone joins Crown Rewards, they're asked what their occupation is.
They are now, yes.
They haven't always?
No.
But not financial resources aren't kind of
No.
canvassed? All right. Is there a plan to canvass financial resources?
Not that I'm
Or is
aware
it just
of.
when they progress to a certain tier that those things are looked at?
Yes,
Or
so
that win-loss you were talking
no
about?
plan that I'm aware of,
All right.
and yeah, it's part of the significant player review.
Okay. Now, in terms of the extra benefits that, say, platinum or black card holders might get, is it the case that they might be offered tickets to the football, tickets to the theatre and things of
That's
that
my
nature?
understanding, yes.
And how about dinners? Are they treated to dinners at any of the restaurants at Crown?
I believe they have been, yes.
What about, are you ever involved in with those patrons that get those sorts of benefits, handing out those
No,
bonus things?
no.
Have you attended any dinners with black or platinum card holders?
Hosted it myself, you mean?
Or just attended one of those dinners that are put on for, say, all black card members?
I haven't attended a dinner for all black members, no.
Or any other kinds of dinners put on?
I've attended events, yes.
What sorts of events?
Barbecues for members.
For platinum and black tier, or just?
It would just be any tier, those sort of events.
And are those barbecues held at Crown?
They have been, yes.
Just out in a garden space or something?
Yes.
All right. So, have you been involved in, like, going to the football with patrons or anything like that?
I haven't been to the football, no.
No. Any other form of entertainment with the premium patrons?
Yes, I would have been to a concert.
At the Crown Theatre?
Yes.
And so you would be sitting with the patrons that were invited as guests of Crown, is that?
Yes.
All right. And is that, when you undertake those sorts of activities, is that part of your job? So are you sort of on the clock, I guess, when you're doing those sorts of things? Or is it in your own time?
I have done both.
Could you say which you do more of, sort of classed as your work versus in your own time?
I always class something being around customers as work, so I'll probably say it's always work.
Now, what's your understanding of the purpose of those extra benefits you give to those members?
It's to reward customers for their membership.
And is it to encourage patrons to keep coming back to the casino?
No, I would consider it a reward, but we do encourage people to visit.
Sure. All right. Now, I'm just going to move on to a new topic, KPIs and bonuses. Do you currently have any KPIs?
I currently don't have any KPIs set, no.
But is it usually the case that you do?
Yes,
And who sets those?
my manager.
Shannon Blake.
Correct. Yes.
And what are those KPIs sort of structured around?
They can be structured around performance of the business, achievement of budgets, membership objectives.
Is it just in terms of your space, like the gaming
It
operations?
can be, there's usually the business performance, the Crown Perth performance, and then majority though around my business and my people.
Okay. You say paragraph 15 of your witness statement on page 2 that previously your KPIs were linked to team achievement of service quality and times objectives. What is the service quality you're referring to there?
That would be based off customer feedback and surveys.
All right, and that's, so you're trying to measure the amount of good versus bad feedback that's
Yeah, correct.
getting?
So our customers do regular surveys or regular feedback surveys.
All right, and those surveys, are they emailed to patrons, or does someone come up to, does your staff like go up to patrons when they're listening and say, would you mind doing the survey? How does that information trickle through?
Yeah, sure. The ones we currently use are emailed to patrons.
Right. And do you find a lot of people reply?
I believe there's approximately 100 a week.
And is that an email sent out on a fairly regular basis?
I'm unsure. It's not sent by my team.
And just going back to paragraph 15 of your statement, you talk about a times objectives. What are they?
So obviously we'd like our customers to be served in an appropriate time. So if they're waiting for service, if they've pressed a button or have a transaction, we'd like them to obviously be served as quickly as possible.
What's the button you speak of there that they can press for service? Where are they? What sort of service can they request through those?
Sure, so that's on a gaming machine. So on the main gaming floor, you can request for a game machine attendant. In the Riverside room, you can request for an attendant or an F&B attendant.
Food and beverage?
Correct.
Yes. All right. And so that times objective built into those buttons then is a time, like a...
There's
the
a
clock starts
system that
ticking and
that
it tracks
records
all of that?
time. Yes, correct.
Now, you also refer to achieving program database objectives.
Yes.
What's that and how is it measured?
So it may be number of sign-ups achieved. It may be how many people are emailable.
And so the higher that number is, the better in terms of
Correct.
performance. And the developing and maintaining positive team culture, how is that measured?
Again, that would be surveys, so employee surveys.
And are they conducted regularly?
They have been done previously, yes.
When was the last one?
Possibly 2018, 2019. There's other surveys that have been conducted, but not those specific surveys we were using.
Okay. And so all that information is gathered and you're given a report in relation to what the staff have said about
Correct.
culture and those things?
Yes. Sorry, can I just clarify? It
Yes.
is confidential, so I don't receive people's names.
Okay. I see. Now, eligibility for a monetary bonus. You've said that you've only in the last year been eligible to participate in the short-term incentive plan.
No, I've been eligible to participate in the short-term incentive plans for some time.
Right.
It's in the last year I haven't participated in it.
Oh, okay. And what was as in, by not participating, do you mean not received?
Notification that I'd be participating in it.
Right. So you've received bonuses previously?
Correct, yes.
And I'm not asking how much you've earned in a bonus. I'm just trying to get a gauge of, are they, 50% of your salary, less than 50% of your salary? Just kind of gauge of.
I'm unsure what my current percentage is, but I believe it's been 15% before.
Okay, so it's kind of like a set rate year to year?
Based on your position, I believe.
Okay. Now, just on corporate culture, what in your view makes a good corporate culture?
In my view, it's very different for everyone, isn't it? I guess corporate culture, in my view, if I'm asked, is about being a good corporate citizen, about being good to your people. So your people is really your customers, your employees and your community.
And how do you view the corporate culture of Crown Perth? And has it changed over time, or is it does it go in waves? Just want to get an understanding of your experience of the corporate culture.
In my experience, and I can only speak to my experience because, as I said, culture is very different to everyone. I think Crown has a very good corporate culture. I think if our people are very resilient, given what they're currently going through with COVID and this Royal Commission, Crown, as an example, really care about their employees. When we close because of COVID, they pay their people. There's no obligation to do that. So, when positions are no longer available due to changes in the business, they'll try and find something. Customers, they want our customers to have the best experience. Mm-hmm. We invest a lot in training, not just in compliance and all of those matters, but also in having a great customer experience and how we can make their experience and memories even better. And also, I think in the community, we don't just promote diversity, we embrace diversity, not just for our people, but in the community as well. And I think we try and truly support our local communities as well as charities as well.
Just in terms of turnover rates, you make a comment in your statement in paragraph 69 there are low turnover rates in your team. And you might have given evidence on this earlier. Was it that 2 people had left in the last year from your team? Or have I completely...
People
no. Maybe that was in response to another question. I'll just ask you the question
Yep.
again. How many of your team of 120 would have left in the last 12 months or so?
I would probably say 5.
All right. And so you'd class that as low turnover? That was really what I'm trying to gauge, because people have different ideas.
Yeah, I guess turnover, I often think, if someone's retiring, that's probably a very positive thing for them. It's not a...
All right. So of the 5 people that you're talking about there, none of those retired?
Yes, a few of them retired.
Okay. And how does that 5 in the last approximate...
Be guessing.
Yes, the approximate 5 in the last 12 months, how does that compare to other years?
I think it would be similar, if not perhaps more.
And do your staff do an exit interview when they leave?
So as part of the process, we will elect if they'd like to receive an exit interview.
And do you know, of the proportion that leave, do you know how many take that option up?
No, so each, when processed, each person I elect to receive it, I'm unsure who completes it.
Okay, but you receive all the results, but you don't
No, I
have
don't
enough.
receive any
Oh,
results.
you don't receive any of the results?
No.
Okay, I see. All right, now I just want to ask you some questions about, you'll have in front of you some patron pseudonyms,
Mm-hmm.
and I just wanted to ask you, So I don't want you to say any of the names that are on there. You can just refer to them by their pseudonym. I just want to know if you've had any interactions, or did you observe any of these patrons in your time at the casino, and what those observations or interactions might be?
Yeah, sure. I've interacted with Patron J,
Yes, and what was the nature of that interaction?
just conversation.
All right, and a recent conversation,
No, not for some time.
a conversation about life
I've
generally, about a complaint or something?
No, I've also attended a dinner with that patron.
Okay, I see. And what sort of, like a dinner at the complex, or is it like one of those dinners we were talking about earlier that some people get invited to attend? Like a
That was the only player in attendance to that dinner.
okay, I see. And so the conversations with that patron were just general, I think you said.
Correct,
Not
yes.
in relation to
Not in
their
relation to casino
experience.
activity, no.
All right. And the patrons G, H and Q?
So G and H, I have not observed them. I may have observed them personally, but I observe their gaming activity at times.
Through reports?
Through systems, yes.
So would you know, have you observed their behaviour on the gaming floor?
Not their behaviour in person, only their activity through the system,
Okay.
or their behaviour of play, I guess, through the system.
And is it really, that's your only involvement? There's not been any interactions you've had with those
Not
patrons,
personally,
or
no.
you've not been asked
no.
for information about those patrons?
I've been asked for information about those patrons, yes,
By particular teams?
by AML.
Right. Now, Commissioner, I'm just going to ask if the general non-publication order might be lifted in respect of 3 patron names which are already in the public domain.
Certainly.
So those names are Daniel Petkov,
Yes.
Alan Tan, and Simon Pan.
So the non-publication order will be lifted in respect of those patrons to the extent that the evidence given today in relation to them will not be subject to a non-publication order.
Thank you, Commissioner. Daniel Petkov, are you aware of who Mr. Petkov is, or did you have any interactions with him as a patron?
I've had no interactions. I know of the name.
How is it you know of the name?
I know him to be a member of the Pell Room.
So you've never seen him at
No.
the casino before?
No.
And how is it that you know his name and that it's connected to the Pearl Room?
I would have seen, my team may have reported that he had won on occasion on a gaming machine, so we report on certain wins.
Significant wins?
Correct, yes.
Right. And what do you do with that information?
So we send an email and place it into our shift report.
And the name Alan Tan, are you aware of that patron at all?
No, I don't believe so.
No. And Simon Pan,
Yes, I'm aware of that patron.
have you interacted with Mr. Pan?
No.
What are you aware of in respect of Mr. Pan?
I assisted in an investigation into Mr. Pan's account and access to the Pell Room.
I see. Right. Commissioner, I have no further questions for Mrs. Smith.
Thank you, Mrs. Spencer. Mr Sadbar.
Mrs. Smith, my name's Sadler and I appear for the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
Hi.
Just a couple of questions on a few matters in your witness statement and your evidence today. Just for clarification, when you're talking about numbers in your team that are actually on the floor at any one time monitoring the EGMs and the other electronic machines, was that 10 to 15 people at any one time?
That would be at a maximum.
At a
So on a night like an event night, yes.
And on a night like an event night, when you've got the maximum of 15, let's say 15, how many of the 1,800 EGMs are usually in operations, just in average numbers?
So sorry, it's currently 1,800 enabled, so it can be up to 2,500 obviously.
But kind of on the main gaming floor, which is where I understand those 10 to 15 people to be operating, is it only about 1,800 on the main gaming floor?
So if they were all enabled,
If they're all enabled,
they
yeah.
would be looking after approximately, 2,300 of them.
Okay, 2,300, okay. And that strikes me as that's not many people to be looking after a whole lot of gaming machines. I think on the maths that I did just before, with 15 people and 1,500 machines, that's kind of over 100 machines each. Is that enough people to be looking after those machines?
Would they obviously respond to transactional demand?
And at paragraph 45 of your statement, we talk about the gaming operations team looking after patrons' responsible service of gaming. That's one of their things they're tasked with. Is that the 10 to 15 people that we were talking about before?
Yes, as they're on shift, yes.
And are they the only people, sorry, withdraw that. Would you accept that those 10 to 15 people are the front line of responsible service of gambling for the EGM machines?
Amongst other roles, yes.
Are there other people on the floor of the casino watching out for responsible service of gaming on the EGM machines?
I can speak to my department,
Yes.
but also table games employees would be monitoring for that. ES employees would be monitoring for that.
But they wouldn't be monitoring the electronic gaming machines, would they?
But we're still monitoring patrons.
Patrons. Okay. Just another topic. This is in relation to the bill note acceptor limit.
Yes.
And just to clarify, are you aware of the machine, the Clown Keno machine?
I am, yes.
Do you call that, is that, in your witness statement, you use the defined term EGM. Would you consider that an EGM or is that the Keno bracket of
It is an EGM, yes.
EGM? And are you aware the bill not accept the limit on that is higher than
Yes, it's $500.
$500? Is that in operation at the moment, that machine, or is that one?
Yes, it is in operation.
Is that, I think you described that as the ones that's a self-service terminal?
No,
For Kenos? No?
sorry, that's the game of Keno.
Okay,
Clown Keno is a authorised electronic gaming machine.
yes.
So yes, there are numerous Clown Kenos in operation.
Okay. I'll just bring up a document. So it's CRW 708 002 4274, and I'll give you the context for this document once it's up. So this is a letter that was prepared by, well, at least it's under the, signed off by Josh Preston,
Yes.
and it's to the Gaming and Wagering Commission. Well, actually, sorry, I take that back. That's actually to the department of Mr. Conley, the Chief Casino Operator, and it arises from the allegations that Mr. Wilkie made.
Yes.
Did you assist in preparing this letter with Mr. Preston?
I did review it, yes.
You did review this letter, okay. Just for your reference, I'll come back to ask a couple more questions about it, but the Clown Keno machines is on page 4280 of that document. And I think in the context it's brought up there, it's in relation to, it's in the banknote limiting document. Are you also aware that that Clown Keno machine and is one of the machines on the gaming floor that allows for continuous play?
Yes, I am aware.
Okay, just a slightly different topic. On paragraph 41, you talk about joining the Responsible Gaming and Management Committee at Perth, and you joined it in approximately April 2020. You say, I'm not aware of the extent to which the Responsible Gaming team are involved in decisions affecting gambling operations or in the selection of new electronic gaming machines at the casino. But you are aware that subsequent to April 2020, the casino has sought approval from the Gaming Wagering Commission for new EGMs?
New games?
New games.
Yes.
Yes, it has. And that hasn't been brought up at the Responsible Gaming Management Committee?
Not to my recollection.
Nothing
Can
about
you
new games.
clarify? Sorry.
Sure. So in June 2020, there's a few examples. I think Crown sought approval for Money Trail Rising Koi as a new EGM.
Familiar?
Sounds familiar? And that wasn't discussed at the Responsible Gaming Management Committee meeting at any stage?
Not to my recollection, no.
And have new EGMs at all been discussed at the Responsible Gaming Management Committee?
Not specific games, no.
So could you infer from that the Responsible Gaming team are not involved in decisions affecting the selection of new electronic gaming machines? Or is that not a safe
I
assumption to
would
make?
be unable to comment because product is not in my
Okay, different.
remit.
At 42, you say, I was recently involved in preparing a risk report which identifies various risks to business operations, and this included consideration of the risk posed by failure to comply with RSG principles in relation to EGM. Can you recall what those RSG principles are?
So it would be in relation to if we did not provide responsible service to gaming and if we did not minimise the harm to customers.
Sorry, can I just interrupt? What
Yes.
paragraph are we in?
This is 42, so directly below the one before. Sorry, I was lost my train of thought. It was whether you didn't provide responsible service of gaming in relation to EGM machines.
That would be the risk, yes.
Is there any difference in that between the EGM machines?
And
Between
Sorry.
the styles of EGM machines? So the report there, you say, included consideration of risk posed by failure to comply with RSG principle in relation to EGMs. Is it the same across all the EGM machines, or is there a difference in between the different
it
types
would
of
be
EGMs?
the same consideration for all EGMs.
Okay, so paragraph 45 then. The gaming operations team are obligated to observe and report when any customers exhibiting concerning RSG behaviours or making concerning comments. Evidence there. And then you give examples of the types of behaviour. Would you include in those types of behaviours playing two machines at once?
Not necessarily, no.
Is it normal to see a player playing two electronic game machines at
It's
once?
possible to see, yes.
Frequently, does that occur?
I wouldn't say frequent. What do you determine as frequent?
Every shift?
Again, I would be unable to comment. I'm not there all the time to comment.
How about using devices to hold down or jam buttons on the machine?
That's not an approved operation of play.
I think you gave some evidence about that it didn't occur too much, but that was the subject of that letter, so that we just have up on the screen. My reference is page 4274 of that document that's up on the screen. Can we just go to that for a second? Oh, sorry, that's a start. Apologies. It's 4277.
Sorry, could I just clarify?
Of course.
The first letter I saw was this one. Sorry, could you go to the first page
Of
for
course.
me?
The first page is 4274.
So that letter, you asked me if I had
Yes.
involvement in that, and I said I'd reviewed it, but then the letter I saw just before, not this one,
Should have been the same letter.
sorry. Is it? Could you
Yeah.
go to the next page?
Of course, if the operator just moves through it slowly, just to give the witness some recollection of it.
No, it wasn't that page. It was a different page where it had the B&A.
Oh, the
B&A
B&A
limit.
The B&A limits are on page. Let me get it for you.
Is that a different letter? The one with the B&A limits?
That's the same letter.
Where it discusses
Yeah, there we are.
duplicate accounts as well. Yep. Okay. Yep.
On that same letter, could we just turn to page 4277?
Sorry, my apologies.
No. Here we are, 4277. So if you see the second to last paragraph on that page, which is 4 of 8, it says, following your inspection of the above game types, we have temporarily instructed all gaming machine shift managers to routinely examine the above game types to gain an understanding if any patrons are using any form of device to hold down or jam the play buttons on any of the game types. Can you recall why it was a temporary inspection as opposed to being routine?
They wanted records of each inspection to determine how many occasions this was occurring.
Sorry.
No, that's right. It's not temporary for the ongoing
That's-
review of the machines and to not allow it.
So it's not like after this particular inspection they turned a blind eye to people
No.
using pigs.
No.
Can we just go over the page to 4278? You see there the findings of that report, which is just shy of a month. It goes from 3 May 2018 through to 29 May 2018. Were you aware of this at the time that the inspection has been made?
Yes.
And were you surprised that there were 37 incidents in that time where they found that a device was being used?
Yes.
Do you have any idea what the statistics are now, or is that?
I would hope it's 0.
Is there any?
I've not had any reports of it.
Okay. Just one last query. Just on paragraph 57 of your statement, we're talking about a different topic altogether. It's about the loyalty program.
Mm-hmm.
And here we're talking about Crown Rewards members are assigned a class based on their status of membership. And one of the examples you give there is Cage, which is a financial customer or an account created for a transaction. What is that? Can you explain what that is?
Yeah, correct. So they may not be a member of the loyalty program. However, they may have had a threshold transaction as an example. So when conducting that threshold transaction at the Cage, it's my understanding they register that customer as a financial customer.
So if a threshold transaction being won over $10,000, that's correct. So if you turned up to the Cage with over $10,000, they would register you as a member? Is that what
Not a Crown Rewards member, a financial customer.
A financial customer. Oh, I see. So a Crown Rewards member who is I understand. Okay. No further questions for me, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sadler. Mr. Bathurst.
No questions, Commissioner. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that's the back row then. Mr. Garros.
No, thank you, Commissioner.
Mr. Smith, I have some questions for you. So I want to understand in a bit more detail what the arrangement is for the supervision of EGMs in the Pearl room and the Riverside room.
Correct.
So who supervises those machines on a daily basis?
So the operation of machines and the attending to machines and transactions and customer queries on machines, that would still be our team, the game machine attendants.
And they, in that respect, still then report to you? but there is a Director of Premium Gaming, EGMs,
Yes.
and that's your husband at the moment, is that
Yes.
right?
That's correct.
And those staff do not report to him in respect of those activities that you have mentioned.
Yes, they don't report to him.
So they are the staff who are going to be observing conduct of patrons in the Riverside and Pearl room in relation to EGMs, primarily,
Yes, as are the hosts, yes.
as other hosts. And in relation to RSG issues that they might observe in the Pearl room and the Riverside room, who would they report those to? Would they be reported through your staff and reporting structures, or through to the premium, the Director of Premium Gaming, or through?
The instruction would be for them to report it through to our supervisors. They, not to say they may not mention something to the hosts, but the instruction is to report to our supervisors.
So, focusing on Mr. Petkoff for the moment, did your staff report to you any RSG, responsible service of gaming or problem gaming concerns with respect to Mr. Petkoff in the 18 months prior to his arrest?
Not to my knowledge, no.
And did they in any way bring to your attention concerns that he might be money laundering or using money that wasn't his?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Are you aware of the Pearl Room being open at all during a COVID lockdown period in Perth?
In the last period, the main gaming floor remained closed, but the Pearl Room opened? Yes.
And do you have any understanding of, this might well be above your pay grade, but the authorisation that was received for that to occur, or? In respect to your staff submitting suspicious matter reports or unusual activity reports, they would not be up until recently, where they were provided with a terminal to do UARs. Prior to that, they would not be able to do an SMR themselves. Is that right?
It's my understanding, yes.
And so how long has the UAR terminal been available to them?
I believe it's in excess of 8 months, I believe.
In excess of?
8 months.
Right. And prior to that, then, what was the process by which they could initiate an SMR?
They would contact the supervisor on shift to report it to them and request an SMR.
And then would the supervisor have the capacity to lodge the SMR or not?
Yes, yes.
And are you then saying that there would then be no report back to the supervisor or to the other staff member as to the result of that SMR being lodged, or?
I'm not aware that they've been provided with a report back, no.
And I think you said you yourself had never made an SMR?
I'm unable to recall if I have. I may have lodged something with surveillance as suspicious, but I'm unable to recall.
So would that indicate that if you had, it was a pretty rare occasion?
Yes, correct.
And separate to those incidents, how often would you have rung surveillance with concerns about suspicious activities that didn't necessarily lead to an SMR?
Not frequently.
What's not frequently?
Maybe one a month.
In respect of responsible service of gaming again, you said that in your role on the Responsible Service of Gaming Management Committee, there'd been some research brought to your attention. What was, and you named an organisation. Which organisation was that again?
I believe it was the Australasian Gaming Council or something similar to that.
And other than that research, in the period that you've worked at Perth Casino, have you been shown any research papers relating to the potential harm caused to patrons by electronic gaming machines?
I'm unable to recall any specific research papers, no.
So, for example, if I referred to a 2017 paper by Charles Livingston entitled How EGMs Work, Structural Characteristics, you wouldn't be familiar with that
No.
paper? And so what is your understanding of the addictive nature of EGMs?
What is my understanding? My understanding would be that it is addictive to individuals. It can be addictive to individuals, but not to everyone.
And how, as the manager of EGMs at Perth Casino, do you manage that risk?
I think by monitoring our customers and supporting them and providing them with the information, providing them with the team on site that can be there to help them. Yeah.
Have you yourself ever approached a patron and suggested that they initiate a pre-commitment?
I wouldn't have specifically initiated, recommended they initiate a pre-commitment. I would have recommended they speak with RSG, yes.
How many times in the period of time that you've been at Crown would you have recommended to a patron that they speak to RSG?
I wouldn't know the exact number. I wouldn't know.
How often?
Again, not frequently.
And how many times would you have approached a patron and suggested that they have a break in play?
Not often.
And in your time at Crown Perth, have you seen customers apparently borrowing money from other patrons in order to gamble?
I've not seen it. I've been notified of that allegedly occurring.
And would you agree that that is a sign of a potential problem for that gambler in a gambling problem?
It can be, yes.
And so in that case, what did you do to ensure that that issue was dealt with?
In that particular case, I recommended that customer RSG speak with that customer.
And so is that and that is only one time in the 10 plus years you've been there?
It's the only time I've been notified of someone borrowing money, yes.
And in respect of customers gaming on 2 machines at one time, would you agree that that also could be a sign of problem gambling?
It may be for individuals, yes.
Do I gather from what you've said in evidence, however, that you wouldn't see it as such a risk that you would intervene in such a case?
Correct. I don't necessarily see it as each person who plays 2 machines has a problem with their gambling.
You said that you've done a risk assessment of your area, is that right?
Correct.
I'm just wondering how you performed a risk analysis of EGMs and responsible service of gaming if you haven't researched in a fair amount of detail the risks inherent in EGMs.
Could you be more specific?
Well, for example, if you haven't read the literature which identifies what it is about EGMs that are addictive, if you haven't read the literature and research which identifies the behaviours that might indicate addiction, I'm just wondering how you then do a risk assessment.
I wasn't aware I had to read that literature to be aware of the risks.
In relation to length of play, you gave evidence that staff notice if an uncarded player stays for long periods of time. Where would we see that information recorded?
It's my understanding RG would record that information, or responsible gaming team would record that information.
So one of your staff would report it to responsible service of gaming
Correct.
rather than through your reporting.
They may report it to us, but we wouldn't make a record of it necessarily.
In the gaming machines shift reports, there isn't any heading there for responsible service of gaming, is there? There's all sorts of information recorded there, including how many people have signed up to Crown Rewards that shift, but nothing to indicate issues in relation to responsible service of gaming. You're nodding your head. Why is that?
There would be no reason. It would just be nothing, something that we wouldn't have chosen to include on the report.
And is there, you've said in answer to questions just previously that if staff had concerns, they would report it to responsible service of gaming team. So do I understand there that if there's going to be any record of concerns, it would be that team that made the record.
Correct.
In your position description, there are key activities and tasks for you related to develop and implement customer retention and attraction. So I'll just read attraction strategies, and to lead the operations of gaming machines, Crown Rewards, business or bus program, Keno and TAB with the aim to develop and grow business. There's no specific reference to a key activity being for you to minimise harm for EGM users. Do you understand why that would be, given you're the manager of the EGM business?
I would have thought that in that position description it referenced compliance with all RG frameworks and
There is,
policies, which that would include harm minimisation.
Right. So when we read that, which is to ensure compliance with regulatory licensing and legislative framework, including but not limited to internal control manuals, Casino Control Act, RSA, RSG and AML, we are to read that as meaning that you have as a key activity a responsibility to minimise harm caused by EGMs.
I consider it one of my key activities.
And similarly, that's the only reference that I can see in your job description to AML. So would the same be true there? Do you read that as being a responsibility or a key activity of you to minimise and detect money laundering at the casino insofar as EGMs are concerned?
Yes.
Can I ask you about cashless play? And I'm sorry we're getting past lunch, but I'll be finished shortly. Could you just explain to me, if cashless play is used, how is the credit on the card transferred to the EGM?
How is the credit from the card transferred?
When I say credit, I mean the money on account on the card. How is that transferred to the EGM?
It's transferred via our EGM monitoring system.
Yeah, I understand it gets onto the card.
Yeah.
I might ask you about that next. But what I'm saying is, once it's on the card, how does the patron then play with that money?
Sure. So they access a menu on the gaming machine and elect how much money to transfer from their card to the machine, and they access the same menu to transfer the money from the machine to the card.
So you've explained how if you've got credits on your Crown Rewards card, you can convert those to extra play. Yes. Is the same process used, or is it somewhat different?
It will look like a similar menu. So yes, you would press a button within that menu to convert your points to extra play. You would also use a button within that menu to transfer your credit onto the game machine, or your cash onto the game machine.
So it goes direct, it doesn't go through extra play.
No, correct.
And then is the banknote acceptor limit brought into play or not?
If they're transferred, yes, because it's linked to the credit on the machine.
So you can still only transfer $100 at a time?
No, you can transfer. So transfer limit is based on the tier that they are. So it's $2,000 for a gold member and $5,000 cashless transfer for a platinum member.
Thank you. asking, going to that other question I said I might ask you about, how do patrons load what I will call the credit, you know what I mean, onto their cards?
So credit back to their card, you mean?
No, although maybe I should ask you about that as well. But
At the cashier, you mean?
right, yes.
So they would present at the cashier. I'm not certain of the exact processes, but they would ask to either withdraw or deposit money on their card.
And as you say then, if they're at an EGM, they've used a positive amount on their card to play with on the EGM, how do they transfer what might then be on the EGM back onto their card, or can't they?
They can, yes. So that's using that same menu on the gaming machine. Or they can take it as a ticket or a hand pay if they elect to.
In respect of cheque cashing facilities, on the main gaming floor, do many patrons use the cheque cashing facilities?
I've only ever been made aware of one customer related to game machines that uses it. I'm not aware of how many.
I think that is all the questions that I have, Mrs. Smith. That completes the questions I have. Thank you. Mr. Davis.
No re-examinations. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. So, Mrs. Smith, that does complete your evidence. The summons will be left in place because it is possible that the other commissioners might have some questions for you. But certainly for the time being, you're free to go about your business, and thank you for coming in today.
Thank you.
Thank you, and we will now adjourn until 2 p.m.
All rise.